This microphone.
All right, everybody. You all hear me?
Yep.
Cool. My name's Wayward. I've been fighting for about 5 years. I'm a Blade Master Apprentice under Luster. Today I'm going to be teaching a class called Fundamentals versus Style, Ways to Improve as a Fighter. Alright? What we're trying to do is first we're going to talk about fundamentals, define what those are, move on to style, define a little bit of what that is, and then we're going to talk about how to set goals and how to continue to improve. Everybody sound good?
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. Alright, so really quickly I'm going to go around and ask you guys to go and introduce yourselves, just get a sense of what's going on, and ask what's one thing that it kind of inspires you to keep going or what's something you want to learn. So, starting over on the left, Aldrich.
Aldrich. What inspires me is just the competitive.
Being competitive?
Yeah, being competitive and getting good.
Gotcha.
Better than I was yesterday.
Xander.
I'm Xander. I just like hitting people.
That's pretty cool. Whitley.
What's up?
Oh,
Introduce yourself.
introduce yourself and one thing that helps like motivate you, one thing you're trying to learn.
Better footwork.
Better footwork.
Yeah,
All
I'm
right.
Woodley.
Excuse me.
I'm Danny, and I would like to learn how. I'm learning how to get inside the red guard because I'm.
Okay.
I'm Mabel. I just like being a pain in the butt. That's it. That's what motivates me.
I just like free floating. Omakizaru.
Okay. What's your name?
Omakizaru.
Omakuzaru? Okay.
Oh, I'm Ben. I just like to keep learning,
Okay.
improving.
I'm Silver. I like to learn about footwork for the different kits.
Okay.
Got it. Tiffany.
Yeah.
Tiffany, and I just want to learn.
Keep learning. All right.
I'm Cabbage. I think mainly I want to learn more about angles.
Angles.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm Jordan, and I'm still new to it, so I'm still trying to figure out the ways to be different types of weapons as I fight them.
Gotcha.
Ezron, I just want to learn to be able to keep up with people on the battlefield.
Okay.
I love the fur, by the way.
Gotcha.
Diz, I'm just always trying to up my footwork, up my game, just trying to keep up with my peers.
Well, I'm Daimao. Live by the red, die by the red. Only real weapon that counts.
Okay.
No, that's talking my ass kicked. What inspires me is I'm just trying to be out here, have a good time, try and bring as much positivity to the sport as I can, and eventually work up to be the inspiration that people can look up to.
Like.
I'm Mongoose. What I would like to do is find more ways to innovate and expand on my style.
Very cool.
Me?
You.
I'm Chris.
No, what's your game name?
Oh yeah. I'm sorry. We don't use those names here.
Showtime, Biscuit, Saga.
Yeah.
I just like seeing people do cool stuff and then steal.
That's cool.
Fighting's always uphill, you're not moving forward, you're going backwards.
Yep, that's the.
I'm here to support you.
Appreciate that.
You! Hi everybody, I'm Cord! I like sword fighting and I want to support Wayward in teaching more classes.
All right. Appreciate you guys. So, as I said, this class is going to be about fundamentals. So I'm going to start there. I would consider fundamentals to be the building blocks to how we do all of our fighting. They're the basic, most simple components of everything. It's what we build our styles off of. It's how we interpret everything. They're the things that we use every single fight. The basics that I kind of consider and conceptualize are footwork, shot selection, and our defensive habits. Kind of how you put up a block, the way that you're moving, little intricacies like that. But really, it's all the things that are going to come together that we're going to go build on. Most often, these are the things that we can kind of train by ourselves or with a partner to go and start to incorporate them. They're going to be less big, heady conceptual things. I mean, like, oh, I make this choice only in X situation. They're the mechanics of how we do it. Does that make sense so far? All right. So, to give more examples on where we're going to go with that, when it comes to going building those up, there's a couple different drills that I want to go and talk about. The first and foremost being block strike. Does anyone know what block strike is?
No, please tell me.
All right, very good. So, here we go. Gloves, you guys should wear gloves, but for fighting. So block strike is an exercise where you and a partner both have a weapon, usually a similar type, and you stand in a given range to be able to go and strike certain areas. One person alternates being able to strike, the other person wants to block. So strike. And so a block, the whole idea here is that we're worrying about defense. We're going to build that up, learn how, and then we're going to go and throw our return. And then they're going to go and have a block. And then he added footwork. But you get the idea. We're going there to go and learn what our shot selection is to a certain degree and how to go and block. An innovation that I know Xander has talked about is when we throw a shot, we'll throw it very slowly, so stay in your stance, not without a block. Say it places here, if I touch, barely move, it'll move it off. This is a quick refresher, something we talked about before. So here, a better example, I'm placing it here, it's just moving, and that's the way to go and dial in the basic fundamentals of how to go and put up a block. We're going to go and evolve from there, and so on. That's just a start. That's to give you an idea of what those two components look like. Another drill that I like using to go and learn footwork and range control, which is I think another for importance, is sticking at the opponent's chest. And in this example, we're going to try to go and just, you could be the leader, so you step.
Talk towards the group, Wayward.
So, the range control footwork drill is to go and try to stay within our center line. This is to go and have one person lead and the other person is going to follow. This is going to learn how to react to what my opponent's doing. So you lead. That's one way to do that. And then another quick example would be if I'm doing this, we can do this very laterally. We're moving back and forth. One person's going to first be the leader. I'm going to take 3 steps at you. You're going to go and take 3 reactive steps backwards. You only do off of my step, and we're going to switch. So. Now it's your turn. Move over your water bottle. Those are good ways to go and have with a partner to build those skills. It helps you to really conceptualize, and everything's going to be built off of that idea. Any questions, sir? Yes, sir.
How do you think that would translate with blue fighting? So with like a longer weapon, I think it's easier to kind of like square off like that, where you might be kind of locked up. How do you think you do them with blue?
So these ideas were based off of blue fighting originally. They're all things that I learned through the SKBCs and like watching those videos. And so instead of having 2 hands on in each square, go into a linear stance, and you have your sword out there. We can go place it at our shoulder if we want. You place it at your arm. You place it wherever you want. We just both agree upon this is the placement, and we move from that point. You kind of configure with your opponent what is kind of the fail, what's the success, and we go and build out from there. An important note to go and kind of follow up on that, whenever you're building or teaching fundamentals to someone, make sure you're both on the same page, and make sure that if, say I want to go and make it really complicated, I'm going to be like, oh, we're going to go and do this super reactive back and forth mini game of like, I'm going to take 3 steps and we're going to block strike, and then we're going to go 3 steps back and then we're going to block strike for something crazy. Like, all right, it's great drill. If my person I'm drilling with cannot do that, we need to stop and back up. You need to make sure we're both on the same page, because you're not going to be able to help each other learn if one person can't keep up with what you're trying to accomplish. So the drills want to be as simple as possible to get across the things we're focusing on. But if we get too far down the rabbit hole, the other person's not keeping up, you're not going to get anywhere. Any other questions about the basic drills for like fundamentals? Okay. So now let's get into style. Yes, sir. No.
I do have a question. So when you're doing a block strike, what really is the focus? Is it really more hand positioning and body mechanics, or do you just kind of keep adding things in until you're working on body mechanics, forearms, blocking, shot placement, footwork, oh my God.
The original block strike drills that a lot of people will use is more about defensive posturing.
Okay.
So you respond to a stimuli, you have a very efficient block, and then you want to have a smooth return coming out of that. The most important part being that block. So we probably don't want to move our feet too much. We want to stay at a good range. And if you say you throw here, I'm going to try to move and tilt my body. Try to hold that playing here. So, throw, you can hit me. Oh, I'm getting hit, right? So how to respond? By that move. And that's my block to go and have a return. So it's always those kind of things. You can, of course, agree upon a more complicated drill as you want to build that out, but that's the start of what the block strike is. That's your goal. Thank you. You're welcome. All right. Any other questions about some basic drills? Learning anything? All right. Go a little bit faster than I anticipated. So, style. What style is, at least to me, is the personality, philosophy, strategies, or otherwise tactics that we bring to the fight that are unique to ourselves and unique to us as a fighter. It's kind of how we interpret these fundamentals and how we use them. So you can categorize styles in a lot of different ways. There's a million different ways we can go and do subsets. Very common ones are being, are you an aggressive fighter? Are you a defensive fighter? Are you someone who's analytical? Are you someone who's instinctual? Are you someone who prefers high tempo? Or are you someone who's a lower tempo, more efficient? And etc. all the way down the line. The significance of this is when we start learning to anticipate and understand ourselves or what we want out of a fight, it helps us to learn what to look for, what to go and geek out. It's easy to be like, I have a million different fundamentals. I learned them all. I think I'm really good, or I'm as good as I could possibly be in the time frame that I put in. And then you go, what's next? And if you don't have that ability to self-reflect and go, what fighting do I really enjoy? What thing do I really want to get out of it? It can be easy to go and get lost. I can be like, oh, Cord. Go on.
No, I was saying Aubrey.
Ah, yes. You're like, oh man, Cord is so great at the things that he does. I want to be like him. And then I realized at a certain point, just emulating what Cord does, without ever taking into consideration the things that I do, I hit a wall. Because I can't be Cord. And Cord can't be me. I can learn things from Cord. And I can go, I really like that Cord's an aggressive fighter. Let's learn the tactics that Cord has. And start emulating those. But you're going to hit that point where you're like, I'm a bit taller than Cord. I'm a little bit heavier than Cord. There's some things that I can't get away with. And then you have to look out into the community and go, okay, what are other people or other styles that I can start incorporating to be more like myself? To really express who I am and to continue to find that success. So I'm going to stop really quick and ask if you guys have any questions. So,
Yes.
yes.
So when it comes to incorporating and growing that stuff, correct me if this is an irrelevant question, but I know that when you're new and you're coming out here, one of the biggest things is to go out there and kind of, express yourself and be unique, kind of find your place in the community. How do you balance that while still learning the fundamentals and still learning how to fight safely, while still encouraging that kind of expression?
So it comes down to, you have to have that self-reflection and look to what you're doing and what you're accomplishing. So, for example, if I wanted to be a more aggressive fighter, and I swear, I'm aggressive, I'm coming at you, and I'm doing all these things, and I'm hitting my partner in the head that I want. Or I'm just not able to land shots the way that I think I should. That tells me that my fundamentals need to improve. And so we go back to the drawing board and we're like, okay, I have this angle. I'm going to be a good aggressive fighter. I love fighting that way. But to get my skills there, first I'm going to go and take some time to tell it, block strike, and do the things that I need to do to dial in how to do that safely. And then I'll come back to that idea and be like, okay, I've improved enough. Now I can go to the next step. Now I can continue to learn those tactics to express myself in that way. So it's always checking in on where am I doing, how am I doing it, and is it safe for the people I'm fighting? Is this safe for me? Am I hurting myself? And what if anything, there are other ways I can do it, looking for those. Does that make sense?
Yes, follow.
Yes.
So I want to make sure that I'm understanding. It sounds like, from what I'm hearing, is that a lot of this is more based on self-reflection and personal accountability, and making sure that we're taking the time to go out there, fight safe, and have the self-awareness to know where you're going.
Yes.
Okay.
A big part of that is, the other thing would say is, you have people you fight with that you trust, understand their input. You can ask them, how am I doing? Where can I improve? But you're doing it through the lens of, I'm trying to get actual. Do you want to structure that kind of conversation, you say, okay, I'm being accountable with, my headshots or something like that, or I'm wanting to become more aggressive. How can I do that? What are the tactics rather than just general fire? Especially if you go up to, like, say me and you fight, get 5 great rounds in, and I'm like, hey, how can I improve? If I had had that conversation earlier, this is a little bit of a segue, to let you know, hey, I want to fight you 5 times, and then can you give me a critique? It's going to be more focused, and then we can both be on the same page to what the expectation is, as opposed to, I'm going to just jump you with a random question at the end of this, and I'm hoping you have the answer.
Fair enough. Yeah.
All right. Other question?
Appreciate it.
No, I appreciate your question. Does anyone? Yes, just.
Alright, so less of a question, more of an observation. Say it's fair to say fundamentals are the rules that we all follow, whereas style is how we individually choose to break those rules to kind of better express ourselves.
Absolutely. I really like the way you put that. Yes. All right. Does anyone else have any kind of questions? Oh, of course, thank you.
As someone of your body type, I would assume you're like 5'10".
I'm 5'9", maybe
Okay.
5'8".
Oh, he's 5'10".
Who do you find that you like visualize and try and take things from yourself?
So, because I'm in that, I would kind of consider myself a medium height category. I try to look for people who also fit into that. They're not trying to be like hammered down to the sky or get so low that they can get jet stack. So I'm looking for that sweet spot. I think there's a lot of people here who we can learn from who are more or less the standard. Like, okay, we're fighting for this middle ground because I'm adapting. My height allows me to adapt because my height is going to be a little bit taller sometimes than some fighters, and a little bit shorter sometimes than other fighters. Sometimes we're on the same par. So level changing, doing those sorts of things, and looking at fighters who can do that. I know that being heavier, and that's something else you asked about, there's a certain level of mobility that I have to fight against. I'm training that constantly to try to improve. But realistically, I'm not going to be able to just sprint for miles and do that infinitely and move all the time. So to kind of compensate, I look for fighters who are efficient in their movement, who time their movements well, who are able to disguise those things to go and get someone to do the work for me. Because I can't be faster on my feet than someone like Godfrey, someone like Cord, like people who are just like, wow, you're quick. I can't catch you. Ash, great example. I can't outrun this boy. But I can close on them. And that comes down to a lot of letting them do the thing that I want them to do. And that's part of my game plan. Does that answer your question? Who? Who for me? Well, I mean, I'm training under Luster. So I do the best I can to go and emulate those things. And then I kind of counterbalance that with Benson.
Yeah.
So in between the two extremes of that, I'm like, I can do a little bit of that, I can do a little bit of that. Let's see how it works together. And that's kind of been my game plan so far.
So you're someone who's kind of in the middle range of like body size, not short, not tall. So I feel like it'll be a little easier for you to be able to adopt other people's style of fighting or maybe specific shots that they throw. As someone who is on the taller side, it's going to be a lot harder for me to be able to adopt who's maybe much more like Buster, who's on the shorter end. Do you have any advice for learning how to emulate or pick up stuff from someone who is on the opposite spectrum of my end? Do you think someone who's on the opposite spectrum just kind of abandon the idea of picking up stuff from someone who's like very your body size, or is there maybe a specific mindset someone can take for trying to adopt that kind of stuff?
So a lot of it's going to come down to self-reflection and understanding how someone's doing it. So a good example being me versus Luster. Luster is so much smaller, so that level change really low, and he can get more advantage because of that, because he's able to get lower to the ground more easily and in some ways more quickly. You kind of have to take that in consideration. Like, okay, I can level change, and I can throw these shots, but I know that in certain situations I'm going to have to bottom out. So part of that comes from the experience. Like, I'm going to try these things. Okay, now I'm going to think critically about why they aren't working, and then come up with a game plan from there. So in that example, once you realize, okay, he can just get lower than I can, then you start looking for ways to get a similar result in ways that are kind of unique. So that might interpret a lot of different ways. Your arms are long. So you could actually level change or change your angle farther out with that more extreme, so you can start a shot high and actually drag it lower without needing to change your knees. Is it a great habit? Not necessarily, but if you understand why you're shooting it, you can get that result. And that's where you have to take into consideration what your body composition is and what advantages you can have. Did that answer your question? Yes.
A comment that kind of wanted to elaborate on what Mongo said. Even if you're learning from somebody from an opposite body type, learning from them still teaches you how they do something. So just because you can't emulate them, understanding how that works for them will help you create a battle plan in order to function from it. There's always something to be learned. So even if I can't emulate you, understanding how a tall person as a short person works will help me as a short person understand to work a way around that. So it is never useless information because it's just about the self-reflection and how you personally interpret it. Like what you can do with that information.
Court, can you talk a little louder, please?
I'll do my best to project a little bit more. Sorry about that.
No, you're doing really well.
Thank you. Something to also think about. Sorry, I should probably say hi. I'm Blade Master Apprentice Ash. I'm under Blade Master Fox. Something to just answer that as well. Something that I was taught under Fox was you can always find a theory, and you can always find the finish line. Just how you take that path is always different. So you always have to think of complementary action to what you're doing. So, because for example, those who know Fox, my fellow apprentice, Blue is much shorter than I am. And so is Fox. Fox and I are not the same height either. But learning from both of them has taught me, okay, I can't get as low as Blue can for a hip stab. So how do I apply that to get as low as they do? Well, I can drop my sword a little lower. I can move out farther. Finding little shortcuts and the most efficient path for me to replicate a similar result, not the action itself, also helps to look at. I can't move the same way Luster does, but I do like a lot of what he does. I like the idea of being able to move and get behind somebody and next to them. So I find where I can make that work for me. The theory of you can always learn something from somebody is something that I firmly believe in. All right. You guys have any other questions about what we're still on, just talking about styles and learning the new components and styles? So, yes, sir.
So, question. For people that are, that's the first month out here, first day, I get it that you come out in the field and it can be kind of intimidating seeing people that are a lot more experienced and are really throwing around sticks like it's nobody's business. With them just first starting to step on the field, how would you suggest, or what kind of advice could you give them in order to have the confidence to not only have that kind of self-reflection and understand that it is a journey and that part of getting better is making the mistakes and having the self-reflection, but also at the same time having the courage to go up and ask more experienced people to learn?
Okay, so this question is two parts. So to touch on the confidence to go up and speak to someone who you don't feel comfortable with, you have to understand we're all here to swing foam sticks. And to a certain degree, I use this, and you may not like this being called a nerd, but I think we're all nerds. Like when I first stepped onto the field and going to out-of-state events, I didn't have any kind of presence to be like, oh my god, that guy's so good. I'm like, that guy's swinging stick cool. Let's go up and talk. And the reality is most people, I'm not going to say everyone, but they're pretty friendly when you start talking about that. We all have that in common. So when you recognize we have this commonality that we like to swing foam sticks, it makes it a lot easier to be like, that guy already likes the thing I like. Let's go up and talk to him about it. And then if you have that makes it a lot, lets you move forward and get out of your head. Because it's really not about that person's a knight, that person's this, that person's that. It's like we're both the same in some way, and that we like doing the same activity. So we already have that starting. Let's just build from there.
We're all people at the end of the day.
Yeah. And then to talk about self-reflection and where to start, I know that it can be overwhelming. When you're first starting out, I think that the core is just not really needing to go and put a lot of pressure to be like, I need to do well. You should be going out and be like, let's have fun and let's try to do it in a way that I can be safe. And then the skill will come. That takes time. People will put years of their life to get better. And everybody's journey is a bit different. So the advice is don't compare yourself to somebody else. Compare to where you were. Think about where you were a month ago and say, am I doing better than I was then? If the answer is yes, you're doing great. If not, then you need to go and take some time to reflect and go, how can I do things differently? Or what were some changes that I would like to make to continue that? And if you keep doing that, you will continue to improve. Everyone's going to take a little bit different time to get there, but at the end of the day, you'll still get there. Does that make sense?
Yes. Thank you for answering the question.
You're very welcome.
Something that I always bring up with my crew at FGCU, I'm a part of a college group, so we bring in a lot of new, fresh people. Understanding, your goal is not to win practice. Your goal is to learn something, or just have fun. Whatever you're feeling that day, don't go in there thinking, I need to be the best person that is beating everybody. It is, I'm here with friends, either hanging out, swinging the thumbstick, or maybe I'm going to try to learn something. Something else you need to be able to approach with is, just because person A is doing like something complicated doesn't mean you have to. You are all your own different person. I always tell people, you're effectively putting together a puzzle. Your puzzle is not their puzzle. That's your puzzle. So don't stress yourself over that they're however many steps you believe ahead of you. Everyone learns differently. Everyone's a different person. You do yours, they do theirs.
Well, we're still on talking about style. Does anyone else have any questions? Speak louder. Got it. Thank you. Think we're good? All right. The last bit. Goals. Ash has already touched on it. When you're going and setting goals, you need to consider what kind of goal is it? Is this a goal we have on field? Is this a goal we have outside of the field? Is this something that we're going to be aiming to, like a large goal, or considered a stretch goal? So something like winning a tournament. Maybe when you first start out, you know that it's going to be hard. It's going to require a lot of extra steps to get there. It becomes a big motivation. Or is this something that's going to be more simple, like I want to use my feet more? So an internal check, where we self-reflect and consider, all right, in this fight that I just went up, regardless of whether or not I won or lost, did I use my feet? Which brings me to the next step, and we're talking about on-field goals. You want to be practicing and setting those goals with a team. We're constantly monitoring what we're doing, and is this the thing that I want to be doing? How can I accomplish that? And what are some of the barriers? You want to make it simple. I know I'm kind of a little bit overly complicated, but in essence, it's as easy as a yes or no. And if no, then why? And we just continue to come back to that. As we build upon that, we constantly get more consistent with our goals, we're going to find more success. And we're going to build out from that. We're talking about goals out. That's where they're usually a little bit more negative. They're a little bit more like I need to get better, or the gym more. These are things that we can still track, but they're going to be less about intention and practice of I'm going to hit this PEL 400 times. It's going to be I need to be honest with myself and say, am I actually doing the things I said I was going to do? And again, coming back to that formula of did I meet my goal? If no, what can I change? Are there any questions about goal setting? All right. Yes.
Are there any goals on field or off field that you would recommend setting? Like, what's a good place to start with?
A good place to start, I would say, is with your fundamentals. You're probably going to want to PEL, and then you're going to want to practice footwork in good form, being able to move, being able to build up your agility. If you can go and get those down, I think it'll help you tremendously in being able to grow. It develops a lot of consistency, and it helps in almost every aspect of what you're doing. And it just takes time. It isn't all that complicated. Just pay attention to what you're doing there, and you'll find your success.
If you are new, a very strong beginning position is actually shot selection. There are a lot of really good YouTube videos about the 5 shots that exist within our game, and every shot is boiled down to those 5 shots. The best way to help somebody be staying consistent is that they can start killing people. The best way to kill people is shot selection. So learning how, like, your simple goal is I want to be able to throw the 5 basic shots, right? That is a very good beginning goal because it is reliant on you only. there's no outside stimuli that matter. It is based on you. And that is one of the most basic things. Footwork is incredibly hard for people to learn. So footwork is actually a stretch goal in the ideal of it for most people, because you're going to have to spend so much time working on footwork that if that's your first goal, it can become so frustrating. Your beginning goals need to be easily achievable goals. So it could be something as simple as one of the 5 basic shots is a stab. To highlight what Wayward said, I want to stab people today. At the end of the day, did you stab people? And those type of beginning goals for beginning players, whether it's you or you're giving this advice to other people, create the achievement dopamine. When you achieve a goal, you get dopamine. When you get that, that makes you want to achieve your next goal. So your first goals should be laying the brick foundation, for that pathway.
Thank you. All right. Yes.
When it comes to goal setting, how many goals should you set? When should you set goals? And how many goals should you have based on, say, long term versus short term?
Okay. So the number of goals that you're setting is somewhat variable to the kind of person that you are and what you can handle. I would recommend no more than 3 goals at a time. That's for me personally. It's up to you, but I think that that's a good place to start. When you have long-term goals, you can go and if they agree with themselves, say it's a path, you can have more than one long-term goal. But again, boiling it down to what is the one thing you want to achieve becomes a little bit easier to look at. If it were, again, going back to that stretch goal analogy, say I want to win a tournament, but I'm day 1 newbie, I probably want to start by getting little steps to go and get to that tournament win. So learning my fundamentals, learning the 5 shots that Xander talked about, being able to start developing better habits, practicing regularly, going to the gym regularly. These are all little goals that I can fit into that fit into this bigger arc goal. So I can keep accountability for it, and where it sounds like it's a lot, as long as you know that you can boil it down and say, I can keep track of all of these things, you can achieve things. If you're at the point where you're like, I'm going to go to a practice and I want to learn my 5 shots all in one day, I'm going to master footwork, and also I'm going to learn how to spin. I'm probably not going to do any of it, honestly. And the reality is it's just too much. So you have to come back again to, well, can I keep up with it? I know I've heard some people talk about it's like 2 plus or minus 3, or some variation of that. Maybe it's 3 plus or minus 2. That makes more sense. And that's the number of things you can keep track of in a fight. I think something similar exists within our goal.
That's like.
Of course.
I have something, if you don't mind about goals. Just a general thing. Try to have smart goals. Don't know what the acronym is. The gist of it is try to set some sort of like achievability to that goal, some way to measure that goal, whether that's not just I want to stab today, but I want to stab 5 today. Now it's a measurable goal, and now you can get that dopamine, right? And then because I know you, have one goal, right? One step at a time. If you have a lot of goals, you might get halfway through the goal and go, man, that's hard. I'm gonna go work on another goal, and then you actually don't achieve anything. This is all opinion. You can throw it out the window, but just my own 2 cents.
I usually do. Make sure you can walk before you run.
Usually.
Or you're going to fall on your face, and it's really funny for the rest of us.
All right. Does anyone else want to talk about goals? I think we're good there. Do you guys want to do some fight analysis and start getting a sense of different styles? All right, cool. So let's make it simple. Who here considers themselves by default an aggressive fighter? All right. Who here by default considers themselves a defensive fighter? So it feels like we have quite a few more defensive fighters than aggressive fighters. And then for those who didn't raise your hand on either, where do you kind of see yourself?
I didn't know that was an option.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good one too. Oh, answer.
Well, ideally it wouldn't be. Ideally,
Just me personally, I fight with all record bourbon all the time, and usually I catch myself almost trying to wait for a shot and then as soon as I see them move, just push that opening as much as I can, and just try and out aggress that one.
Okay.
So it's like you wait, and then you find the opening, and then you do it.
Gotcha.
For people that may be able to be struggling to define the difference between an attack and a defensive fighter, you are one of those two categories. That period. And if you are standing there waiting for the other person to move, you are a defensive fighter. If you are standing there while making aggressive movements to make them do something, you are an aggressive fighter. Notice how you are almost doing the same thing, but that small difference makes the difference. A defensive fighter could be somebody that constantly, like, you're just trying to put them in a position where you can take advantage of it or wait for them to make a mistake. An aggressive fighter is someone that creates the openings. And so that's the type of person, like if you're big on blade beats, if you're big on like checks, that like getting close, you're probably aggressive. But you could be defensive and still like getting close. It just depends. It all depends on the mentality of your brain. And so like you said, counter fighter, that's how you described. That is a defensive fighter. Because you are waiting for an opening rather than creating an opening. There are plenty of amazing defensive fighters. It's a perfectly viable style. It's just that is a very definable difference between the two.
I know that. Thanks, because I did not know that, so now I do.
I also want to just point out one thing. There is no better defensive or aggressive fighter. Don't feel like, oh man, if I'm not one, I'm not good. No. Shit, I switch depending on what I'm using. When I'm fighting red and spear, I'm a aggressive fighter. Fighting sword and warrior single, I'm a counter fighter. Well, maybe not single.
Angry goblin.
So, one thing I think I should touch on before I break off into the analysis, you can fluctuate your strategy. What I'm saying by aggressive versus defensive is if you go up to a random person and you get no stimuli, what are you most comfortable? What are you wanting to do immediately? That's like, my gut instinct is, I'm going to aggress this person. I want to walk you down and hit you. Versus other people who I know, I'm like, they're just going to wait me out and then try to stab me. And then those kind of like different mentality, and it's okay to be either one. When you know your opponent, like I know against Xander, like, well, maybe my aggression at certain moments aren't going to be great. So I should wait for him to do something that I can take advantage of. That's a made up scenario. I really wouldn't fight Xander the same way, but you get what I'm saying. It's like you can switch, you can still be at your core an aggressive or defensive. These labels don't matter as much when you start getting into specific scenarios. It's just helpful for when you start learning, how do I motivate myself to go and learn new things? What are the things that I think are cool? And when you think something's cool and you learn it, you're usually like, I feel more fulfilled, versus being like, so I heard I gotta go and stay on the tip of my toes the whole time, and I've been doing that for 20 years straight, and when does it get fun? You know?
I tend to be more aggressive depending on how many enemy archers are on the field.
Is this every red fighter?
I try to take my time. I'm just going to die, so I might as well be aggressive.
Yeah.
Think of it like this. Do you want to be the cause or the effect? Do you want to cause the fight, or do you want to be the effect of the fight?
It's fair. All right. So if everybody's ready, let's go ahead and separate